Thank you for those beautiful words. So you are a rising star in the Republican Party. And I want to understand better, why is it that you have taken on justice reform and justice reform for women and girls as part of your defining leadership on the Hill?
Well, my principles are the same. I believe that, in this country, no one is predestined to be poor. I've always felt that way. My parents came here with absolutely nothing. And they had the opportunity to work hard and give me the opportunity to not just achieve my dreams of being, working and being able to provide for my family, but to also give back, and taught me the responsibility of that the world doesn't revolve around me. And I think that that's a responsibility that we all have, not just for ourselves and for our children, but we have to use our gifts and our talents to be able to, for the betterment of our families, for the betterment of society, for the betterment of our country at large. And this, I feel, is a cause worthy of that attention, because we, first of all, have to be able to stand up, but we certainly cannot be part of the policies that actually prevent people from opportunity, which to me is one of the reasons why we have this, there's a snowballing effect, because issues like the minimum sentencing requirement literally cuts off that opportunity. So everything I do comes from the lens of being a mother who loves my children, and certainly wants opportunities for too many of us who are vulnerable and do not have those opportunities.
So, so much of our conference today has centered on the lives of women. But we haven't really had the chance to talk about our girls. And much of the work that you've done around justice reform has been centered on the lives of young folk in terms of expungement for juveniles and the Mercy Act. And, part of what I heard when I was a human rights lawyer dealing with women and girls subject to incarceration was that we have so many girls who have been subject to sexual violence. And are then locked up in detention and put into solitary. And they tell stories of how when they were in solitary, they tried to cut themselves, because the fear and the anxiety of going through that kind of sexual violence and then being put in solitary was so damaging. Wondering if you could talk more about this issue and the Mercy Act.
Well, first of all, I want to say I don't know if you've been thanked enough for the work that you've done, but I really appreciate the efforts that you have done. It's a great example of how we all have a part to play in this. But, when you talk about these young girls and there's so many things that have hurt our young women, and the problem is there's not enough attention to the growing amount of women that are actually being incarcerated. And there are 4 reasons that we can actually address. Too many times we address the symptom of the problem and we don't address the problem itself. We can spin our wheels, throw money at an issue, thinking that we could feel good about ourselves and say, you know what, we threw money at this and this is perfectly fine, when we haven't addressed the problem. So I'll give you an example. I work on financial services. I took on the task under my subcommittee of terrorism and illicit financing to follow human trafficking and the funds that go towards human trafficking. Now, a child that's been trafficked, I can tell you right now, has a greater chance of being incarcerated than someone who hasn't. You have to understand the mental abuse that goes with that, the struggles that they have. So usually people that, it doesn't start off by saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to commit a heavy crime. Usually it's drug use, abuse, sexual abuse, knowing that that's what their lives, that's what they know. They go back to what they know. So a lot of these young women have boyfriends that exploit them. That's why that work is so incredibly important, because I'll tell you, and I have so much respect for the men that are in this room, by the way. Thank you for being here. I have to tell you that when a mother is out of the picture, it affects so many people. So that number of, even though we have 93% of the people that are incarcerated are men, 7% are women, this issue is not, we have to really pay attention to that number. It's growing and it affects more people because like I said, the majority of the women, 60% of the women that are incarcerated are actually mothers.
That's right. And there's such a powerful connection between maternal incarceration and the trafficking issue, right? I know that when I worked with girls who had been trafficked in this country, most of them talked about their mothers being behind bars. And it was because their mothers were behind bars that they were so vulnerable to the trafficker. So continuing with the issue of our girls, we also know that there has been a remarkable movement that many folks here have led to end the practice of shackling in our state. So Miyosi Benton, wherever she is, has been such a powerful leader in ending the practice of shackling in New York State. And Women and Justice, Tamar Kraft-Stoller as well. And we now have an effort to look at the issue federally in terms of the legislation that Booker has put out. But we also shackle our girls. And so I'm wondering, as someone who has been such an advocate for our girls and is looking at the justice reform issue, what can we do in detention centers around our girls who are pregnant and give birth and are shackled? Is there something that can be done at the state level? Is there something that can also be done at the federal level?
So I'm a little biased because my background is as a mayor, and I have to tell you that in the 10 years that I have been involved in municipal government, I loved it because not one issue in the 10 years that I've worked there was a right or left issue. It's not like we can drive over a pothole and say we're going to fix the right side of the road, right? We go to the same schools, our children go to the same schools, we shop at the same stores, we drive the same roads. So I believe that a lot of the effective solutions can be found, and we need to support some of the issues that are, some of the, I would say, programs on a lot of the local levels because they are tailored. Especially for some of the women that have these problems. There's a group that we work with called Atherton in Utah. It's probation officers that have a resource that they can send women to. There are 60 beds there. I wish that we had so many more programs like that because they literally tailor the programs for what that specific person needs. So whether it is sexual abuse and because you can't move forward unless you actually get the help that you need. Some is mental abuse. Some of it is being able to find resources where they could provide for them, for their children. A lot of times, the biggest problem that people have at the bare minimum is the fact that they will leave prison for something that is incredibly minor, and then they can't get work anymore. They can't find a place to live. They can't do anything. They're literally shackled. And so what do they have? Where do they go? They go right back to the place that sent them to prison to begin with. And all of a sudden now you've got a larger percent of women that are there for more severe crimes. So again, we have to volunteer, and these are the things that we do. Whether you're sitting there asking yourself, what can I do right now? There are so many communities, community centers that are out there that desperately need help, desperately need volunteers. Little things that you can find. There's always something each and every single one of you can do to help support that. My job here is to make sure that we unshackle, first of all, the criminal justice system, that we unshackle individuals, that we unshackle states, and remove a lot of the issues that really hinder these programs from being able to take flight.
So I know you have a hard stop at 3:30, so I just want to ask you one last question, which is also, I think, our marching orders, which is that I know you want to see bipartisan criminal justice reform happen. What can you ask of this room to help push that type of legislation through?
Well, I think it was mentioned earlier, a lot of times, too many times with colleagues in Congress, it's out of sight, out of mind. Everybody is concerned about so many other issues that they forget, again, that there are things that we can work on together. If we literally start dealing with the issues that we all agree on, we can get so much done. This country would be, completely different. So, one of the things that we can start on is by having a bipartisan effect call. Say, this is something that's important to me. If you need me to help you with this issue, I'm happy to help you. And when somebody actually does something, too many times we hear about the things that we're not doing. It goes a long way to call someone and say, thank you for supporting that piece of legislation. I can't tell you how many times someone has actually, if it's one person that's called me and said, hey, this is really important to me. I don't always agree with you, but I agree with you on this issue, and I'm here to support you on this issue. It makes me just want to do more and reach out more, because I feel like I'm responding not just to one side of the street, but both sides of the street, right? So those are the things that you can do. Too many times we focus on the doom and gloom, that we don't focus on the things that we can do together.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. So nice.